Hello and welcome to the A Stab in the Dark podcast. You might realise that I'm not Joe and I'm sitting in the middle.
What?
And that's because
Whoa, what
I
the
don't
hell?
know half of what these people are about to talk about because I've only seen one of the two movies about to be discussed. Well, what's everybody's thoughts on the original one?
Well, I've not seen it, so this is
It's going well.
Oh, you also know half of the things then.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dave, what do you think about the original?
I remember watching it when it came out a couple of years ago. It had got a lot of buzz online on Reddit, and I always try and track down the movies that get a lot of buzz on Reddit. And I watched it, and I was not prepared for it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's quite a hard watch.
It's a tough watch. Yeah,
You wouldn't expect it to be such a hard watch going in, but it takes you places. It's quite dark. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautifully shot. I remembered. Well acted. Yeah, great setting. I really like the setting. So the intention of that film is a commentary on like Danish culture, right?
Yep.
So specifically about like the over politeness, like embedded within Danish culture.
Yeah.
And so
which we as British people can appreciate.
Yeah, so I connected to it like immediately. And I did think it was interesting in the remake that they set it in England because, I think it works in that setting too.
So yeah, it's basically British style politeness, very similar to Danish in the remake. So Joe, as a man that hasn't, as a man that has gin in his
I am
mouth,
a man.
yeah, as a man that has not seen the original but has seen the new one, what's your feelings on that?
So I just had a really good time watching it, and it was so tense throughout. And there's a lot of themes I picked up, and just really spoke to me, and I just really enjoy it as a movie that's come out this year about kind of the almost repression of us as people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of repression in there. A lot of and what's quite interesting is it's a flip on the idea that the repressed ones are the Americans, and the ones who are more free and kind of sexually active are the English people. And it's like a twist on the tale. And I really enjoyed that about the film. And there's a lot of that throughout. There's the Americans are always throughout kind of the established people. They're the ones who have got the big jobs. They're the doctors. And they're the ones whining and dining with kings and queens, when actually it's the country folk and the ones out in the sticks who are the English people in this scenario. It's a real great way of reversing that role, but within English culture. And that's what I've really enjoyed while I've been thinking about this film.
So quite interesting then. So in the remake, which I haven't seen, the main characters are British and they're visiting an American couple.
No,
the other way around.
An American couple
I got that wrong.
British.
I'd forgotten, but yeah, the
Right,
main
okay.
characters are American. Yeah, it's set in the UK.
Right.
Other than the opening before the credits.
Yeah, so they so like in the original, like the main couple meet the other couple on holiday.
Yep.
In Italy in the remake, and I don't remember where it is in the original.
And the Americans have moved over to Europe to be closer to mainland Europe, so they can holiday with them, so they can network with them and be part of this European 21st century culture.
Right, so they go to the country house in the middle of nowhere, England.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's in Devon, I think. Yeah.
It's off the beaten tracks, isn't it? It's somewhere like miles out from anywhere else. There's no signal on their phones.
Yeah.
Is it the same as the original? It's a man and his wife and
Yeah, it's
a young-
so
a young
the main
boy.
couple are a man and his wife, the American couple, man and wife and daughter,
right.
and then the English couple,
So you got the Dalton family, the Americans, and then you've got Paddy, Kiara, and Ant.
the English. So that's James McAvoy, and the woman is, I've forgotten the name of the actress now, but she's
Mackenzie Davis.
no the who plays McAvoy's wife. She's an up and coming Irish actress.
Aisling Fran.
That's it, yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
she's not really up and coming.
Ashling, I imagine.
Yeah, she's not really up and coming. Well, she
She
started she starred in The Nightingale. Was her?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
and and in stop motion as well, which I think was either last year or
Also
this
very
year,
good.
which was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a young son, which I think is the same, right, as the
Yeah, it's
original.
the same setup as the original.
Yeah. And yeah, so it just like in the original, the couples meet on holiday. The remake has a little joke kind of at the expense of the original, where there's a Danish couple on holiday with them as well.
Oh, I didn't realize that the original was Danish. So that
Yeah.
makes way more sense now.
Right. That they meet, but they're not in the fold. They're not.
Yeah, so they're like kind of like because they're like all staying in like some kind of holiday complex or something like in this town, and so they seem to be able to go off into the town during the day, but they kind of they're like all living together, it seems like. And yeah, so like the Danish couple are like really boring, and the American couple. I think like the intention is that you think that they're going to go with the Danish couple,
and do like a reversal. Of
but they're really boring, and then McAvoy swoops in basically and makes a joke to drive away the Danish couple, and then they take over that role from the original. Okay. Yeah.
The Danish couple isn't played by anyone in the original.
Couldn't tell you. I don't think so. Yeah. I didn't recognize any faces.
I like that opening scene. I don't think it's really spoiling anything in this part of it to say that when you get James McAvoy, sorry, yeah. James, fucking
McAvoy.
McAvoy.
I'm not actually sure. I say McAvoy constantly.
Yeah, it's like McElhenney, where I'm just kind of setting my way. I say it that way. I'm not sure.
So when James McAvoy comes into their life, and he immediately picks up, he says, "Is anyone sitting here?" Like, no. The American couple are like dreading them having to talk to these people while they're on holiday, but instead he takes the ball by the horns, or takes the bed and like moves it over to the other side. And then the American guy, Ben Dalton, he then kind of like looks at him with envy, and it's this idea of manliness that runs throughout. What is a man? Is it an alpha male? Like, and it's runs throughout is this idea of gender and manliness and the subversion of that. And I think that is a running theme throughout this.
It's definitely a theme in the original.
That's from the original too. Yeah. Sure. And that's like what kind of bonds the two male characters, right? Like,
he's a lot more of an outspoken, party style kind of like fun times man, isn't he, in the original?
There's a similar thing with McAvoy,
and the visitor man is kind of shy and reserved and doesn't really want to get involved. He's just kind of
but you kind of get the sense in both versions that like Joe says, he admires that quality and in a way wishes he has it, and I think that's kind of like what kind of puts them on the radar a little bit, so that they do a week away on holiday, and again like the original, they go back home, and they through the mail, right?
It's a postcard with them all on the front of the postcard.
So they get, again like the original, get an invitation to like come,
stay a few nights
stay a few nights away
house.
So they drive from London to like the middle of nowhere in Devon. Like it takes hours and hours and hours, and they get there like way past dark.
Well, just to finish off, I guess for me, when I think about this before we go into spoilers, I'm thinking like it's just worth a watch. It's really interesting what they do with all the characters, and I really enjoyed it. It's a very entertaining, tense, how I found it to be during the film, and then they didn't overdo it for me with the idea of the gender swap stuff or the gender reversal stuff. It was quite interesting in the idea of what is a man in the modern day. Lots of things I was thinking about Joe Rogan and the ideas of what that is to a man, and the way that men gravitate towards a character like that. He's millions of listeners on Spotify, and it's mostly a male-dominated audience for someone who they perceive as an alpha male figure. And I reckon the character in this by James McAvoy is that alpha male figure, a bit like the English Joe Rogan style. In the same way that these days people gravitate towards Andrew Tate, even if that's so problematic, but there's a lot of young men who will gravitate towards that because he is offering an alternative to what is happening in the world right now, in this idea of gender, and it's an escapism from what is happening, I think, with that, and the idea of breaking the boundaries of gender and this more traditional outlook. And I think that's the theme that runs throughout is modernity versus tradition. There's this idea of this old technology versus new technology. They come in a Tesla, whereas the country couple have an old like Subaru estate. They use videotapes, they use cassette tapes. This analog technology that is used throughout the film. And it's almost like a relationship that decays over time because analog technology decays. And I found it interesting how they used all of this stuff within the film. So I would just say, if you're out there, just go and watch because it's a really fun ride. It's like a roller coaster of emotions as you go through.
Yeah, so I mean, I would echo your sentiments about the remake. I would say, firstly, if you can, try and seek out the original.
Unfortunately, I couldn't.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to come by in the UK actually. But if you can like find a place to
Pirate
rent it.
Bay.
I thought it was on Shudder. I think that's.
Oh, it was
when
on
I
Shudder,
watched
is it?
it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, well, brilliant. But however you can find it, I'd recommend watching it and watching it first, which is what I did.
Yeah.
Go in as blind as you can. Be kind of open-minded to it. And yeah, I don't know, maybe clear out the rest of your day afterwards. But because I watched that first and then went into the remake with pretty low expectations. It had only been 2 years since the original. I was sick of the fucking trailer. I'd seen it to death this year.
Yeah. Highly marketed.
Yeah, it was very like aggressively marketed. I love James McAvoy and pretty much watched it on the strength of him being in it.
It does lend credence for what would otherwise be, or at least seem to be, a cash in on a movie. Just translate it into English and sell it on that benefit.
Yeah, I mean
the fact that James McAvoy's attached means that possibly it isn't that.
Yeah, I mean I can't really think of anything I've seen him in that wasn't good, to be honest. I haven't seen everything he's made, but he's even in like kind of mediocre stuff, he's so entertaining. And I bought a ticket on the strength of him alone, basically, but was honestly blown away. And I think that my knowledge and familiarity of the original actually added to my enjoyment, especially of the later parts of the film. Trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible. I would definitely recommend seeing the remake, but if you can see the original first, definitely do it.
Was McAvoy's performance a stronger performance than the original?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
unequivocally, you're saying
well,
yes.
I mean, I would say the acting is more or less faultless in both films.
I wrote in my notes he is on the edge of sanity throughout. He's on like this tightrope. He's walking this tightrope throughout. And even though at times he looks like the perfect family man, there's just something off. There's just something off about his performance in a good way. Like it works well.
Yeah, I mean, like he absolutely commands the scene when he's in it. I would say, and I want to also give praise to Mackenzie Davis as the wife in the American Family that comes to visit. She's
more of a focal point on her than the husband then.
Well, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it a little bit more. Yeah. But as I say, all the acting is good. But I think that she's excellent. She's an actress that I enjoy when I see her popping up and stuff, and she's really good and like does hold her own against James McAvoy, and which is a tall order because his performance is amazing.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, he's proven time and time again he's up to the task if he's given a difficult role. Split is probably the biggest calling point, people would say.
Yeah, I mean, he should have got an Oscar nomination for that,
James
surely.
McAvoy's performance.
Yeah.
Right, so so I think that's it for our spoiler-free discussion. Turn it off if you don't want to hear spoilers / haven't seen it yet, or if you don't care, stick around, or if you have seen it, stick around. So we're about to talk about spoilers, and Joe, have you got something to say about that?
So Dave, you were saying to me in the original that they all fucking die, and very depressingly, whereas in this one they beat them, don't they?
Yeah. So okay,
interesting.
Okay, so the setup between the two movies is the same. Most of the beats in the second act are kind of the same. So
instinctively, not having seen the movie, I kind of dislike that.
Yeah, so I was really curious what you'd have thought if you'd have seen it. So Speak No Evil is kind of interesting, the original and the remake as well. It's almost like kind of like a subgenre of horror that I mean I can't really classify. It's almost like not cringe horror, like social faux pas horror almost. It's like secondhand embarrassment almost. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's something we've seen in comedy a lot of the time, like Peep Show and The Office, and
yeah.
make it comedic, but there is a cringe element there that makes people uncomfortable and they don't want to see those shows.
I mean, the original Office, some people are really turned off by Ricky Gervais's performance because it is so fucking cringy.
Yeah.
But it purposely so, obviously, but it is just the most cringy shit.
Yeah.
David Brent
Yeah.
is just the cringiest character that's ever existed.
I think it's quite cool that you can translate that into horror because
Yeah, and it's
perfectly
very
placed
like
for it.
really effective. Yeah. And yeah, again, it's very similar with like these like tiny little kind of social transgressions. You know, like it starts off with kind of over familiarity, oversharing, and then over parenting like the children, like the visitors' children, and it escalates. Yeah, like I say, a lot of the beats in like the first two acts are very similar. So
It's interesting that they in that opening bit after they get back from Italy, they're having a great time. They're free. The American couple, and the Daltons come back home to London, and immediately it's raining. Like it's immediately shit. And it's a bit like coming back from somewhere, I don't know, say Australia, and then immediately you come back and everything is fucked in the country. And you're like, oh God, I've got to come back to reality. And that's a difficult thing to comprehend. And this idea then that they're there in their house and their daughter won't stop playing with this toy, and the dad is adamant that she needs to stop it. But why? It doesn't matter. What's it got to do? Maybe she should hear this. I found his character to be the most cowardly. I thought he was pathetic, actually. And that's probably from a male perspective, right? Is that I thought his character throughout where he can't...
Judging him on his masculinity.
I am, yeah. And that's not necessarily the right thing to do.
Okay, I'll give you some context because I can't remember if this was in the original or not. But like, yeah, so she's 12-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And she has like a little stuffed, is it like a bunny rabbit?
Something like that,
that she still sleeps with every night.
Yeah.
And obviously the parents like want to kind of wean her off this thing, because she's kind of...
She's nearly a teenager.
Yeah. So what is it about that made you dislike him? Well, he wasn't more direct with his daughter?
Well, no, he's just pathetic throughout, isn't he? He's spineless. He can't directly tell his daughter. What he does instead is go and say his wife in the living room, like, we need to stop her from playing with this toy. And she goes, shush, she can hear us. And he goes, well, maybe it's better that she does hear us. He never directly approaches any situation. He doesn't have the balls to do it.
So he's the one that wants it, but also doesn't want to get it done.
Yeah. And he's like... This is harsh because I don't necessarily believe this, right? But I'll say it controversially.
Yeah.
I don't agree with this.
Take it out of context immediately.
Yeah. He isn't man enough to please his wife. He's not able, like she cheats on him. We find out later in the 6 months before she cheated on him.
Well, she exchanged texts and got some like dick pics. So
right.
It was like emotional kind of affair. Yeah.
But he's never angry enough. He's never manly enough in this scenario. It's this idea of like masculinity playing throughout. Yeah, so I mean,
film. I don't remember if like the emotional affair was in the original, but this like kind of impotence of actually both of them is an element of the original. Like that's really like the main like message. It's like I say, it's like a commentary on this Danish politeness.
Yeah,
and like that
being overly insular and lacking any.
Yeah, and being uncomfortable, but like always complying because of basically the social awkwardness of saying no, this is wrong.
But they have an inability to be honest to each other and to everyone else around them. They play a certain social role, and it's part of this 21st century living like in a flat in London, and it just snowballs from there. Like it just becomes huge, and in a way, weirdly, the couple that they meet and then go to their house and then try to kidnap their daughter, blah blah blah, they save them in a weird way in this film. Like they make them honest with each other. They they sort out their differences and they can leave the scenario as people who are now honest and they're raw and they're real, because at this point they're all just playing roles within a society. They're not actually doing anything. They're all pathetic. This couple are pathetic.
So is that passive, as in they're confronted with things and they have to deal with their situations, or are they actively?
Well, they're given no
helping
choice
them?
really. It gets a bit Home Alone
Yeah. Okay. So basically,
or Skyfall.
yeah, this impotence within. Yeah. So yeah, they use this kind of like this thing with the rabbit and this thing with like the past emotional affair as a way of setting up like kind of like this impotence in him. But yeah, I think especially in him. But really what it's doing, and I don't remember if the details are the same, but the setup is essentially the same, is that it's setting up both these characters for an arc of coming together. And I maybe you'll remember better than me, Mike, but I think that the marriage in the original was also on the rocks. You get the sense, right, that
there's a lot of disagreements between
yeah. Again, I think a lot of the beats are the same, and what it does in the original is it sets them up. They're established, right, with these flaws, and okay, I've seen films before. I know that something's going to go wrong, and they're going to go through this experience, and then they're going to come out closer together at the end.
Yeah.
And that is
the tropes of those kind of...
Yeah. And that's why the ending of the original is so impactful and actually kind of resonant, and in terms of like communicating the message of the film, is because it's deliberately unsatisfying. Like, it sets up all these arcs, and naturally, you empathize with the protagonist of the story, and you almost kind of see how it's all going to go. But then it doesn't actually work out for them. They keep missing all the red flags. And in the end, they lose their daughter and they die. And actually, in the original, their death is actually quite controversial, because like they're basically marched into like a big crater or quarry or something.
Yeah.
And then they're stoned to death.
Oof,
and
jeez.
It's quite brutal.
Yeah. So
Shocking.
they're told to strip naked, which they do. They comply, and then they're told to march into the middle, which they do. And then they're told to stand there and be stoned to death, and they do it.
See, my English American-y brain doesn't like that.
That's the whole point.
I love that though.
That's the whole point, is that it is unsatisfying.
Yeah.
It's jarring because of how the whole like the convention of storytelling, essentially, right? And so it's a very deliberate choice to like essentially sabotage the story to make the
point stronger.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I do think that makes the film, it will have more legs. I think it will have more legs. It won't have anywhere near the mainstream appeal and success of the remake. But Speak No Evil the original will be remembered because of that, ultimately. However, and again, like, I saw the original before going to see the remake. Especially going in expecting that to happen, it's then like doubly cathartic to watch all those character arcs actually complete and actually.
Right. So is that the reason that you're positive about the change to the ending?
Yes.
In that it gives you a sort of release or ending that you maybe wanted.
Yes,
from the first one,
exactly. It's almost like paying off my expectation from watching the original. And it's almost like a double catharsis. It's like being able to rewind time and play through the whole thing again, but this time do it right. That's how it felt. And when I was in the cinema, I absolutely had a fucking whale of a time. Like Matt McAvoy, like I say, the first two acts are more or less the same, and he's very entertaining to watch anyway. But especially in the third act, he goes bananas, and it's so entertaining to watch. But then it's really entertaining and satisfying. What happens is the daughter in the remake, she becomes friends with the boy who doesn't have a tongue.
Yeah, Ash.
Ash, and the boy. The boy is
Ant.
Coming in confidently with the wrong name. Well, the worst thing is I just
reading the document.
Here you go.
His name was Ted. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, Ted. Yeah, sure. Ted, yeah.
And
Yeah. So her and Ted become good friends.
Yeah.
Over the course of the film.
We're rolling with Ted.
Yeah. And he shows her like photographic evidence, basically, of like these are the past families, and like and this is these are my parents.
yeah, it's underneath the stable, the horse's stable. Yeah.
Right,
And then she obviously understands immediately what's going on, and then she cleverly she puts blood on the inside of her leg. I think she cuts herself to make it look basically.
Yeah, there's she's told earlier in the film not to go anywhere near this type of leaf.
It's like a thorn or whatever. And so she goes there and she cuts her leg, and then to make it look like she's had her first period, and then she goes to
then the mom takes her up to the bathroom,
and then she tells the mum. And then they contrive a way. They contrive a way to tell the dad, and so all three of them are in the bathroom, and they all know what's going on. Yeah, because the daughter's taking a photo of like all the evidence. She shows the mum, and then the mum obviously understands immediately what's going on, and she already wanted to leave anyway because of like all the kind of
they have already left by this point, haven't they?
Yeah, like they like in the original when
they snuck out at night.
They sneak out at night, and then she's forgot her teddy. That's in the original.
And they go back to sneak in to get it back.
Yeah, but then they run into them again. Like in the original, they wake up in the night to find the daughter sleeping in the bed.
Yeah.
Of like the host couple. Mm-hmm. So that happens the same. So that's what that gives them the impetus to leave, and then they come back because they forgot the teddy.
Right. Okay.
And McAvoy's pissed that they left without saying goodbye. It's all the same.
Yeah.
And so the daughter tells the mother in the bathroom, and they like find some contrivance to get the dad in there as well, like saying, "Oh, she wants her dad. Her dad's better at handling this kind of stuff."
Yeah.
And so then they tell the dad, and so all three of them are like in the bathroom, and they all know what's going on. And from this point, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen.
I thought they did, to a certain extent, understand what was going on. I think because they realised that the kid having no tongue has some relation to him not being their son.
They put it down to like they put it down to some sort of condition where he's born with a smaller tongue.
That's the cover story that McAvoy gives. Yeah, in the original.
And they just kind of go with it, don't they?
Yeah, because again, like that's just they don't want to ask questions.
Do you know one of the most haunting bits of the whole thing is where they're arguing in the bedroom at night, the American couple, the Dawsons, and he's watching them like flat out through the fogged, what's it called?
Like a window.
The window, but when it's fogged out, what's that called?
Like a misted,
yeah. When he's watching through the misted window.
Yeah, and he's like a silhouette.
And and he's just listening in. Yeah. And he's hearing all their issues, their sort of affairs and everything. It's just like that's. I know people in the cinema with me were like, and inside I was like, oh, this is fucked.
But like Joe says, it basically becomes a bit like Home Alone. So
Judi Dench.
Yeah.
Well, they actually set traps for the occupants. Or have
not specifically, but they do. They try the Molotov cocktail, don't they?
Yeah. So,
but he is such a wimp.
Give him some.
Well, he fails to throw it.
No,
he's got the weakest throw. It's almost like the idea of a woman throwing. Do you know what I mean? Like the old school ideal that a woman when they throw is like, and it's really weak and shit.
Right.
But except for the man does it. And he fucks it up entirely. He's meant to set fire to the roof, but instead sets fire to the car that's below.
So he throws it, and it doesn't smash on the thatched roof.
Yeah, because he doesn't throw it hard enough.
No, because it's a thatched roof. It's exactly what should happen.
No, you should go... But he went... like that.
No, it bounces off the thatched roof and then lands on the car and sets his car on fire.
All right.
And it blows up the car.
It blows up the car,
eventually,
There's a similar, level of success though.
Yeah, it's not as good as the roof, but similar. Yeah, but I thought it was quite good. Like it's more of a realistic thing
because the roof was meant to bring the attention to the neighboring community.
Yeah. They kill the accomplice. They
but that's not only it, right? It's because the dad does the Laurie Strode and he hides in the cupboard. he hides in there and he's like, oh, I can't.
You hate this dad. Like he smashed the set.
Well, he's such an idiot. He's such a.
No, he's like a normal person.
No, he's not. He's not though, is he? He's a weak man. He's a weak man.
I don't think so.
Well, he's not stepping up, but at the same time,
he's scared. He's hiding.
Situation,
So this is the thing, right?
But
so
he doesn't step up to the situation.
Yeah, but he does though. Is the thing. Like he does something really important.
Go on.
Yeah. Okay. So he's hiding in the wardrobe, and then like out of nowhere, his wife comes and kills the accomplice.
No. You're missing out a really vital point there, because he jumps out. And then he like weakly tries to get the guy in the head with the screwdriver he's got. Not screwdriver, sorry, with the hammer he's got. And he like fucks it up, and the guy takes advantage of him. He's about to kill him.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
his wife passing by notices, goes, oh shit, I should take control of this situation, and then just fucking hammers his head and kills him in one go. Like, he fucks up every opportunity to save his family. And until the end, he has one moment.
That's the whole point, though. That's his arc, right? Like, he doesn't fuck up catastrophically. Like, he just fucks up.
But without the woman, without his wife, without that,
but that's fine.
The true dominant partner, the one who wears the trousers in the relationships, which ends up being her. He's fuck all. He's nothing. He's a weak person in general. Doesn't matter gender. He's just so repressed, so weak that he looks up to a man who's meant to be an alpha male who ends up being this awful human being. And this is the idea of Andrew Tate. This is like Andrew Tate in a nutshell. There's people who look up to this man, but yet he's a trafficker. He traffics like teenage girls, but there's guys out there who will never stop loving what he does because he speaks to their manliness, which they can never actually get, or they can't comprehend. They can't find it within themselves.
It's idealized masculinity, idealized male strength, isn't it?
Yeah. And they're gravitated towards that. They are in a structure, and they live their life in a structure where the man is dominant still. So in this scenario, in a way, he's just failing. He's failing to do his job.
I don't think this has anything to do with gender. Like she's a stronger person than he is.
She is.
And she steps up quicker than he does. And she saves his life
doesn't
several
get him
times.
to leave, I'm presuming. So
she's happy to go back and get the teddy bear just like he is.
Yeah.
But that's where he should go, because she later says, "Why did you turn around the car?" She says that to him later in the film. She's like, "Why did you do this? It's your fault." He literally blames him in that scenario.
Well, that's kind of like she could have said something.
It's a low blow in that scenario.
But when like they're at like action stations and like the gloves are off, like she steps up quicker and she saves his life. But at the end, he does redeem himself because like they're on the roof, and there was like a ladder to get on the roof, and they needed the ladder like positioned back up on the roof so they can get down.
Yeah,
right.
But the ladder's fallen over. So he jumps off the roof, like basically cripples himself.
Yeah.
So that he can crawl over to get the ladder up so they can get down, the two kids and the wife. And for me, like, honestly, just doing that is for me like a satisfying conclusion of that character. Like, and I didn't feel like, yes, he's weak. They're both weak. She's stronger. But I didn't like feel that he was like not manly, and I didn't feel, that like I didn't really feel in that kind of final section that any of them kind of acted like irrationally or poorly. They just felt to me very believable. Like the Molotov thing felt like something I could do, and that's why I like the third act so much. Actually, like it felt very believable. They fucked up, and they cobbled together what they had no plan. They just improvised, and it's just a bunch of people coming together trying to kill each other.
The downward slope of the original, basically.
And I felt very satisfied with just that final act of him jumping and crippling himself to save his family. Like, I mean, he does get away and live, but like he could have easily not.
I thought they were all pretty disgusting at the end to let the kid just destroy the head of Paddy is the character name.
So they eventually like kill the accomplice, they kill the wife, and they leave just McAvoy left alive, Paddy, and I don't remember exactly what happens, but he gets injured. He's on the floor and basically ripe for the killing blow, and the father steps over him to do it and can't do it.
Right.
which again I don't think is particularly weakness.
It's not weakness.
No. But so they're about to leave, and then the son without the tongue, like the kidnapped son,
Right, takes his vengeance.
And brutally murders McAvoy right in front of them and right in front of the daughter.
But they don't do anything. They just stare
watch.
at him. And
in like horror and shock.
Whereas I feel like I would be like, no, you're not doing that. Like that guy is traumatized.
Like
he's a murderer now.
It's a cleaned up but similar point made to the end of the original.
Yeah, like it's a more of a cycle of violence thing, because like the camera ends on him, like with like a kind of traumatized face, and you're like, okay, so he's gonna pay it forward.
But the idea surely is like turn the other cheek, and the ideals of Western society is Christianity, turn the other cheek, and yet he doesn't. Like he lets the kid. They all let the kid just kill this person with a stone. Like, they let him pick this up and just fuck him up good and proper. Like, surely that's sort of the idea where the adults in that scenario go, whoa, no, because I didn't do it. Let the justice system have its way with him.
Yeah, and this, I liked this quite a lot. And yes, I think it was, like, again, this is like a minor subversion of character arc. Like, because, again, like, they set up, and I don't know if they're doing the original, but in the remake, they set up that they had a son. The American couple had a son that died, like stillborn or something. So you're like, oh, okay. So they're trying to set, that they're going to take both the two kids away, and they're going to be like a surrogate family to him, going forward into the future. And that would be like the perfect like wrapping up the bow of all of the character arcs. Everything's set up and paid off, right? That they had this line about them losing a son. They have this other son that
But that's the
and so just this tiny little wrinkle to that where everything else is kind of satisfying and pays off. But then honestly, it's a the trauma that the kid's gone through is more or less entirely implied. But like it does feel like a logical thing, right? That he's so traumatized that he would act in that way, and that he's not okay, like, and won't be okay going forward, and that he can't like join the family like nothing happened. So like that little
smaller version of the downer ending of the original.
Yeah. So
he's going to end up in a mental institution.
Yeah, exactly. Which is quite a logical ending.
He ain't got a chance in life.
But like they do that like movie setup of like, oh, it's all going to end up happy with him going to them. But actually, when you think about it, that could never really have worked anyway. And so I found that kind of a much more satisfying conclusion for that character, and it was nice to just have a little wrinkle in like the happy ending at the end, and that's literally how the film ends.
I think it's probably more believable than a more easy ending to stomach when you've seen the original, if it isn't entirely and totally rosy, right?
Yeah. Well, for sure. Like, like, I mean, I overall preferred the happier and more satisfying ending. But I liked this little wrinkle in that.
I thought it had a down enough ending without it descending into complete darkness.
I'm comparing it to the original, where like basically that entire third act just doesn't happen. Basically, like there's a minor climax.
I'd find it hard to watch that film, not knowing that. I could watch it now and have that expectation in mind, but to have been able to watch that film straight after watching the English language version would have been really difficult for me after that, because I'd been like, fucking hell, this is... and I'm not one, as you two know, I'm not one to enjoy endings which give me that completely down feeling. I like a full arc to be explored and to end and to have not a happy ending, but somewhat of a happy, a bit like The Graduate. I'm happy for it to have that ending where it's like, oh shit, what's going to happen next? An ambiguous ending, yeah. But to have a fully complete film where the main protagonists die and stuff, I'm not into that.
See, I like that. I like a dark ending. I like a brutal kind of assault on preconceived notions of what should happen and what you want to happen being thrown in your face in the guise of realism. I like that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if I actually do like... I probably will like the movie because it's got James McAvoy in it. It's probably got some good performances.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's probably well made. But it'll be interesting to see if I like the ending or not.
Yeah, I am curious. Curious what you think of it. I mean, mostly I like happy endings or quote unquote happy endings. More. And I do probably prefer the remake overall. I just found it overall a much more enjoyable watch, and it's certainly unlike the original, a film I can see myself coming back and watching over and over and over for that reason.
Yeah.
But like I said at the beginning, I think that the original will have the sticking power because I think it was very purposeful what they did with that ending, specifically for what the message that the film was trying to communicate, and to really, really communicate that, they had to have that ending.
Yeah,
and,
a bit like Ring, right? Like Ring is the better movie, but a lot of people argue they prefer The Ring, the American remake, which is almost up to the same level of quality, but it's a lot more. I don't know. If for the Western audience, it brings it a little closer to them, and it's a bit more. It's a bit closer to what they would expect from a
Western
ghost story.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I imagine it's similar to that.
Yeah.
I just want to I wrote a few things down. I'll just go through them quickly. One of the things that really interested me about the film was the goose, when they kill their goose and they serve it to them for dinner on the first night they're at the farm.
Oh yeah.
And there's the whole awkward scene where she doesn't say that she's vegetarian and just goes with it. And it's but it's James McAvoy who makes her take a bite. It's idea of consent, but it's done through vegetarianism. It's like the idea of this woman not really consenting to it, but she's not saying no, but she hasn't verbally given any consent to this scenario happening. She just doesn't say anything, and it's this blurred lines that happen.
That's why it's very really early, isn't it? Like that's why it works, because the red flags are small, and it's almost like she, and I think the original is the same.
Yeah, it builds over time, and they give more and more concessions.
So with the vegetarianism,
their will. Yeah.
She tells them on holiday that she's a vegetarian, but then obviously time has passed when they actually come to the house.
But they obviously know.
And yes, you get the sense, and obviously with the way that the plot turns out, you get the sense that it was definitely on purpose and definitely callous. However, you could reasonably believe that he has forgotten.
Yeah.
And there is reasonable doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And she doesn't say anything. And so it's those moments really that the original movie especially thrives on, by really towing that line for a long time.
As to whether they're being malicious or it's just...
Yeah, and you spend a lot of the time watching the original one very, very frustrated with the main characters because they put up with a lot.
Yeah,
I think the remake,
for no reason
the remake gets through that a little bit quicker to leave space for that final climax.
Yeah.
So they kind of get through the main points of the original just a tiny bit quicker. So you spend a bit more time in the original being frustrated with the protagonists, but because that is the very first line that he's crossing, McAvoy, but it's kind of in that kind of blurred space where you're like, oh, okay, fine. But then it just a tiny little gradual
He is crossing lines throughout, isn't he? Because even when he puts their daughter on the scooter in Italy, they haven't really given their consent to that. And no normal person would be like, yeah, let's put them on the front of our scooter as we go round the block. Because they're inherently dangerous and they're not wearing any protective gear. She's not wearing a helmet. And they kind of let it happen because they're very passive people.
I think he's definitely overtly crossing a band with that in a way where the vegetarian thing maybe he's forgotten, but with that, he definitely crosses the line. But they also don't say anything. They kind of look at each other and they're like, are you gonna say anything? Are you gonna say anything? No, okay, I guess this is happening. And that's
and he does that, but in very small ways. And then they always have an answer. It's like gaslighting. They always have an answer for it. It's like, why was the daughter sleeping in the bed? Oh, I just heard her crying and I'm sorry if I crossed the line. And it's like, oh, we feel bad now. But they're totally right in their reasoning for not wanting that to happen. But yet then they feel like the bad guys after it's happened. Yeah. It's just throughout the film that keeps happening. And the idea of McAvoy's when they go for that meal, in the middle of nowhere, when they ask them to stay another night, or we're inviting you for dinner, and they go and have it, and they said, oh, we've been together for 17 years or something, and he's about 10 years older. And so she mentions the Daltons. They mention like, well, how old was she then when they were first together? It's like, don't go there, don't go there. Why not go there? Because it's obvious. Like, okay, well, how young would she have been at that point? But they don't ever go there because they're polite. They're very British, even though they're American. They're very British in that outlook.
Yeah,
and it's that subversion
I forgot
again.
they're American for that reason. Yeah.
But they want to live within this European culture, and they have to change their ways. And it's these, and he even says in the film, he's like, because you let us. Like, why are you doing this to us? Because you let us do this to you. They could have left that morning. They weren't holding them hostage throughout this film. They're not holding them hostage. They're in control of their own destiny. Still, at that point, they leave, but they go back for the toy. They're still in control of their destiny at that point. They could quite easily take their nice little Tesla, go back to London, but they don't. They turn the car around, take it back, and they know. They have all the red flags they need to know, but they suppress everything. They suppress their feelings, and that's what they do throughout the movie. They suppress everything that's about them to conform.
Because you let us is basically one of the most memorable things of the original.
That's the mantra, like the
whole
film.
That's the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
So again, it will be interesting to see if I feel that that's weakened in the remake, being as though they. I mean, it seems like a lot of the key points where he's pushing it, and they're just passively.
I think pretty much
there,
all the main beats, at least in those first two acts, are there. Like I say, it's just the climax that changes.
And that's the other thing they do when they're talking to them about how they keep their relationship going and the sort of role play games they do. And they're like, the first two are very specifically age related. So the one is like student teacher, and then it's I can't think of the other one right now, but they're age related, and it's like that's what gives off the whole the alarm bells. What's this Lolita vibes going on with this relationship?
There is this like undertone. Yeah, we haven't talked about it. Like this, like firstly, they kind of because McAvoy's wife is considerably younger than he is.
I think I looked up the actors' ages, and they're like 10 years difference in age. She's about 10 years younger, which would have meant
she's about our age, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly, about 30-ish. Yeah. She's 30, 31 or something. So,
but she can play younger as well. Like her character
she
could have been younger.
But I think they've been together for 17 years. Or so she would have been about 13.
Yeah, and when
if we go off their actual real ages,
and so there's this like. This implication that she was one of his first victims that's never really confirmed, and she actually plays into it in the final act to disarm them. But she's 100% in, and she's
I don't remember that in the original.
Yeah, so it's never really confirmed, but it's there. And then there's more evidence as well when she dies, and McAvoy is holding the daughter hostage. And basically saying
they basically beg, don't they? The parents beg, please don't kill her, take us, but not her. They do that old cliche.
And he's like, don't worry, we're going to make each other very happy. And the way he says it again,
who's going to take care of me?
That's it. Who's going to take care of me? So again, it's like playing into this idea that maybe his wife was a previous victim.
But what I also found really fascinating about that scenario there was that he is supposedly this alpha male, right? Who he hunts, he finds his own food, he like heats the house, he's the man, yet he needs a woman. Like he is like every other person who from the old days to today that a bloke needs a woman. He's playing into that stereotype.
If they are like previous victims, they're more like possessions, I imagine, than actual partners.
I can imagine he actually weirdly it's very warped that he does love her in some way, but he also kind of gets over it rather quickly and then starts going after this younger, obviously she's 12.
Yeah, something like that.
She's 12, so he's like, and he says, who's going to look after me? Basically saying, implying that, this is going to be a sexual thing at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main difference, I suppose, when comparing the villains is that for me, I always felt in the remake that it was definitely McAvoy's show. Like the wife is a character, but like she's kind of like an accessory to him in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's definitely a cooperative
Whereas in the original, and also their accomplice is like basically his friend. Whereas in the original, they're basically part of like a big child child trafficking network, right? And for me, from what I remember of the original, you kind of get the sense actually that they're a part of something much bigger.
Yeah.
And like their accomplice in that was just one of many people, right? That
for sure.
so like you felt that's another difference as well, right?
The Predator's one of many.
Whereas with this, it really felt more like McAvoy's thing by himself.
But they parallel each other. The couples are really parallel to each other. So in the so McAvoy take those two in the relationship. They live in a traditional household with traditional means of food. They're agricultural, so they plow their land. Then you've got the idea of them using old technology, so they don't have internet connection. They use videotapes. When they're doing that really haunted scene where they're doing the dancing scene, it's a tape. It's a cassette tape, and he rewinds it. So for all of this, it's traditional. It's old analog technology for an age, a bygone age. Whereas in this other relationship, it ends up going the complete other direction. So it's the woman who takes control, and the man becomes more passive. And they play the English couple, McAvoy, they play it the woman passively. But in the other relationship, he becomes the passive one to her taking action at each point. She's the one who initiates them leaving originally. Then she's the one who kills people. And she's the one who really helps them escape. She hides the children. She then tells them when to come out. She is that badass female character in some senses that you see as a final girl in many respects. But she also subverts the idea, the way she takes them out. So, she picks up the acid, the cleaning product, which is like 90% hydrochloric acid.
Yeah.
Which then she uses against James McAvoy's character, which in real life is a weapon used mostly against women in the real world. Yeah, so Katie Piper, she was acid attacked by her ex-boyfriend, right? And this happens time and time again to women. And yet in this film, they subvert that expectation, and she is the one who acid attacks a man. And then he's in the bathtub being cleansed with the water by his wife in that scenario. So they use these ideas of what would attack a woman and use it against that. It's the same way as Laurie Strode in Halloween uses typically female things to take out Michael Myers. So she uses the knitting needle to take him out, and then she uses a clothesline, a coat hanger. And it's in that same vein to me that she then uses a hydrochloric acid to disfigure him, when it's usually men who disfigure women in that way. So I think those are important weapons that she uses in this scenario. And I just found that all very interesting to watch, and to see that happen to that alpha male type character, the person you would most associate with being the man who takes out, he gets the gun, he shoots the fox, they eat the fox. I don't know, it's that type of deal. Yeah. They shoot and then they fucking eat it, and they're men. They're proper men, Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Dave, what would you give this out of 10?
7.
Any reasoning why it wouldn't be an 8? What would you give the original? That 7 as well.
Yeah, but for different reasons. I think, I'm definitely more likely to rewatch the remake, and we'll be buying it to own it when it comes out. I think it's a movie that I'll enjoy coming back to, and will enjoy rewatching much more, just because it's kind of much more kind of conventional overall, and it's just amazing performances, incredible tension. We didn't even really talk about it very much, but like the sequence when they all know essentially what's going on, and then McAvoy finds out that they know, but no one's admitting that they know. Like, it's a very long, drawn out scene. It's incredible. Right. So I think it's a movie I'm much more likely to come back to than the original. But I don't think overall that it's as impactful or as kind of successful,
emotionally affecting.
Yes, and
successful
as kind of like communicating a message,
Yeah.
as opposed to like telling a story. And so yeah, I think 7 and 7 for both, but different reasons.
Cool. What about you, Joe?
I'm going to go 8 out of 10, and it's because for obviously the 2024 version, I enjoyed it. I liked the ideas of the characters, and I'm not against, as it may seem, I'm not against the Ben Dalton character, but personally, I've always found that problematic. I mean, maybe that's the beauty of it, is that it's playing into my own insecurities. Maybe what would I do in a situation like that as a man? But that's the point of it, is to ask you, what is masculinity, what is femininity, like what are those things, what are they defined by? Is it your society that you live in? Are they real things, or are they just societal? It's this idea of that, and that's why maybe I didn't really like that character, and I found him a bit of a weak person, is because I like to think of myself in a certain way. But given that situation, and given the fact that I've always lived in a city, would I be more like him in that scenario or not? I don't know, and I hope to never know. But that's the whole point for me. So I really find it interesting that they did that and they subverted that so well for me. So yeah, it's a solid 8 out of 10. It could gain points in the long run when I watch it again, but we'll see. But yeah, it is. I really enjoyed watching it. It's well worth a watch at the cinema if you can get down to see it before it's out of theaters. It's well worth a watch. Yeah. It's really good. It's if nothing else, an entertaining evening out.
Absolutely. That's one of those kind of things they put on the poster.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe Kennard.
5 star, 5 star.
Well, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. There's a Instagram and a Twitter, _stab in the dart with an X. Oh yes. Yes.
What's Twitter, Mike?
Yeah.
Fuck you, Elon Musk. I'm not saying that. Yeah, thank you for joining us. This is Joe. This is Dave. This is me. Goodbye.
Bye.